The Grand Hall of Universal Recognition stood at the center of the Galactic Council's headquarters, a massive structure that floated in the neutral zone between three major star systems. Today, the hall buzzed with activity as representatives from thousands of civilizations gathered for the annual Planetary Classification Awards. The ceremony was usually a boring affair, with categories like Most Efficient Atmospheric Composition and Best Managed Resource Distribution going to planets that nobody really cared about. But this year was different. This year, they were announcing the winner of a new category that had everyone talking. Ambassador Kelric of the Zentari Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and tried to calm his three hearts. As the head of the Galactic Survey Committee, he had personally reviewed the data from the past cycle's planetary evaluations. What he had discovered about one particular planet had kept him awake for many rotation periods. The planet in question was called Earth, and it was located in a relatively quiet arm of a spiral galaxy that most civilizations ignored. The humans who lived there had only recently developed basic space travel and had no idea they were being observed and cataloged. The survey team that had been assigned to Earth had started their work with typical scientific enthusiasm. They had mapped the planet, studied its ecosystems, analyzed its dominant species, and compiled their findings into what should have been a routine report. Instead, the report had triggered emergency sessions of the survey committee. Some members had demanded that Earth be quarantined immediately. Others had suggested that contact with humanity should be forbidden for at least another 1,000 cycles. A few had even proposed that the entire sector should be marked as hazardous territory. Kelric looked out at the assembled delegates and saw a mix of curiosity and unease on their faces. Word had leaked about the nature of this year's special award, and many representatives had done their own research on Earth. The result was a growing sense of alarm that rippled through the galactic community. The Crystalline Collective had filed a formal complaint arguing that simply discussing Earth at a public ceremony was irresponsible. The Hive Worlds had withdrawn their representative entirely, claiming that even indirect exposure to information about humanity constituted a safety risk. The lights in the Grand Hall dimmed, and a holographic display materialized above the stage. It showed a blue and green planet rotating slowly in the darkness of space. To the untrained eye, it looked peaceful and inviting, beautiful even. White clouds swirled across its surface, and its single large moon hung nearby like a protective guardian. But Kelric knew the truth. That lovely appearance hid a nightmare world that had somehow spawned a species so resilient and so terrifying that it challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about life. "Honored delegates," Kelric began, his voice amplified across the hall. "Today we gather to recognize a planet that has fundamentally changed our understanding of what is possible in the universe. The Galactic Survey Committee has decided to create a new award category this year. We call it the Recognition of Extreme Planetary Conditions and Dominant Species Adaptability. More informally, it has become known as the award for the most terrifying planet in the galaxy." A nervous murmur ran through the crowd. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One representative from a methane-breathing species released a cloud of anxiety pheromones that wafted across 3 rows of seating. Kelric continued. "The winner of this inaugural award is planet Earth, home to a species that calls themselves humans. Before we proceed, I want to assure everyone that all safety protocols are in place. The human representative who will be joining us shortly has been thoroughly briefed and is being escorted by our best security team. There is no danger to anyone in this hall." The murmuring grew louder. The delegate from the peaceful collective stood up, her translator device crackling to life. "Ambassador Kelric, with all respect, why would you invite one of them here? Have you lost all sense of caution?" Kelric raised one of his primary appendages in a calming gesture. "I understand your concern, but it is important that we face our fears with knowledge rather than ignorance. The humans do not know they are terrifying. In fact, they consider themselves to be quite fragile and vulnerable. This disconnect between their self-perception and reality is one of the most fascinating aspects of their species. He gestured to the holographic display, which zoomed in on Earth's surface. Let me begin by explaining why Earth has earned this recognition. First, let us consider the planet itself. Earth is a Class 4 death world, a classification that alone should tell you everything you need to know. Its gravity is 0.98 standard units, which might not sound extreme until you realize that this is nearly twice the gravity of most civilized worlds. Humans have evolved to move, work, and even engage in recreational activities under this crushing weight. They do not even notice it. The display showed images of humans running, jumping, and lifting heavy objects. The audience watched in horrified fascination as a human female effortlessly carried another full-grown human on her back while climbing a steep incline. Several delegates made sounds of distress. The atmospheric composition is even more alarming, Kelrick went on. Earth's atmosphere contains 21% free oxygen. Oxygen, one of the most corrosive and dangerous gases in the known universe. Humans breathe it constantly. They require it to live. Their entire biology is built around harnessing controlled oxidation reactions. In essence, they are constantly on fire at a cellular level. This would kill most species within minutes, but humans consider it normal. A delegate from the Silicon Collective interrupted. Surely you are exaggerating, Ambassador. No species could survive in such conditions long enough to develop intelligence. Kelrick's expression was grim. I wish I were exaggerating, but it gets worse, much worse. Earth's temperature ranges are extreme by any standard. The planet experiences regular fluctuations that would require most species to shelter in climate-controlled environments. Humans simply wear different clothing. I have seen footage of humans living and working in temperatures that would freeze our blood or boil our fluids. They have settlements in regions where the temperature drops to negative 40 degrees standard, and other settlements where it rises to over 50 degrees. They complain about the discomfort, but continue functioning. The holographic display showed images of humans in various extreme environments. There were humans walking through frozen wastelands, their breath visible in the frigid air. There were humans working under a brutal sun in vast deserts, their skin darkened by exposure to ultraviolet radiation. There were humans swimming in water that was so cold it had chunks of ice floating in it, and they were laughing. The planet bombards them with deadly radiation from their sun, Kelrick said. Their bodies respond by changing color to absorb or reflect it. They call this tanning, and many of them do it recreationally, for fun. They deliberately expose themselves to radiation for aesthetic purposes. A collective gasp went through the audience. The delegate from the photosensitive coalition fainted and had to be carried out by medical staff. Kelrick pressed on, knowing that he needed to finish before the panic spread. The weather systems on Earth are perhaps the most violent we have ever recorded on an inhabited planet. The atmosphere generates massive storm systems that release more energy than our most powerful weapons. These storms produce lightning, which is essentially natural plasma discharge. Humans have learned to harness this energy. They have also survived in regions regularly hit by rotating air columns called tornadoes, which can reach wind speeds of over 300 standard units per hour. The display showed footage of a tornado tearing through a human settlement, destroying structures that had taken years to build. Then it showed humans emerging from underground shelters and immediately beginning to rebuild, working together with a determination that seemed almost mechanical. Earth's oceans cover most of the planet, Kelrick continued. These oceans contain creatures that are larger than most of our space vessels. One creature, which humans call a blue whale, can grow to over 30 standard units in length and weigh more than 200,000 standard units. And yet humans hunt these creatures. They used to hunt them to near extinction before they decided to protect them instead. Because humans can choose to show mercy, even to creatures that could easily kill them. The silence in the hall was profound. Every delegate was staring at the display, trying to process what they were hearing. Kelrick knew he had their attention, but he also knew that the worst was yet to come. He had not even begun to describe the true horrors of Earth's ecosystem or the disturbing capabilities of humanity itself. "The land is equally deadly," he said. "Earth is home to millions of species, many of which are predators equipped with natural weapons that would make our military designers weep with envy. There are creatures with venom that can kill in minutes, creatures with teeth designed to tear through flesh and crush bone, creatures that can run faster than our ground vehicles, creatures that hunt in coordinated packs with tactical sophistication. And humans, these fragile-looking humans, survived and thrived in the same environment as all these predators." He paused to let that sink in. In fact, humans became the apex predator of their entire planet. They did this without natural armor, without venom, without claws or fangs. They did it with their minds and their endurance and their absolute refusal to give up. They developed tools and weapons. They learned to work together in groups. They became so efficient at hunting that they had to create laws to prevent themselves from driving other species to extinction. The display showed a human standing face to face with a creature called a bear, a massive predator covered in fur and equipped with claws as long as Kelrick's fingers. The human was not running. The human was taking a photograph. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Earth is not the planet itself or its ecosystem. It is how these conditions shaped humanity. As Ambassador Kelrick spoke those words, a door at the side of the Grand Hall opened, and the human representative walked in. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Nearly half the delegates stood up, ready to flee. Several actually did flee, rushing toward the exits in a panic. Security personnel moved to intercept them, gently guiding them back to their seats while assuring them that everything was under control. The human, for her part, looked confused and a little hurt by the reaction. She was a woman named Sarah Chen, selected by her government to represent Earth at this ceremony because she was considered calm, diplomatic, and friendly. She smiled and waved at the assembled delegates, which only made several of them recoil in fear. Kelrick gestured for Sarah to join him on the stage, and she walked forward with the easy, confident gait of someone who had grown up under Earth's crushing gravity. Each step she took seemed powerful and deliberate to the watching aliens, though Sarah was simply walking normally. She climbed the stairs to the stage without any visible effort, her respiratory system efficiently processing the oxygen-rich air that had been provided for her comfort. "Delegates, please welcome Sarah Chen of Earth," Kelrick said, trying to keep his own nervousness out of his voice. Up close, humans were even more intimidating than he had expected. Sarah was not particularly large by human standards, but she still towered over most of the delegates. Her forward-facing eyes marked her as a predator species, and those eyes were constantly moving, tracking everything around her with an awareness that spoke of millions of years of evolution in a hostile environment. Sarah stepped up to the speaking platform and smiled again. Her teeth were clearly visible, white and strong, designed for tearing and grinding. Several delegates whimpered. Sarah's smile faltered, and she looked at Kelrick with concern. "Is everything okay? Everyone seems really nervous." Her voice was clear and strong, powered by lungs that could process Earth's dangerous atmosphere. The translator device rendered her words in standard galactic, but even through the translation, there was a quality to her voice that made it clear this was a species that was used to being heard, used to making itself known in a world that was trying to kill it. Kelrick spoke gently. "They are nervous because you are human, Sarah, and humans are terrifying." Sarah blinked in surprise. "I'm sorry, what? Terrifying? Me?" She looked down at herself as if checking to make sure she had not accidentally worn something frightening. "I'm just a person. I'm a middle school teacher. I teach kids about math and science. How is that terrifying?" The disconnect was so profound that Kelrick almost laughed. Almost. Sarah, you come from a planet that would kill most of us within hours. You breathe poison. You are constantly bathed in radiation. Your planet tries to murder you with its weather, its animals, its plants, and even its microscopic organisms. And yet you not only survive, you thrive. You build civilizations. You create art and music. You have even begun to explore space. From our perspective, humans are the most resilient and formidable species we have ever encountered. Sarah processed this information slowly, her brow furrowed in thought, a very human expression that somehow made her look more dangerous because it showed the power of the mind behind those predator eyes. But we are fragile. We get sick. We get injured. We can die from so many things. We need water and food and shelter. We are not tough at all. Compared to what? Kelrick asked gently. Compared to other humans, perhaps you are fragile. But compared to the rest of the galaxy, you are nearly indestructible. Let me give you an example. The Zentari, my people, come from a world with 0.4 standard gravity. Our atmosphere is mostly nitrogen with trace amounts of oxygen that we carefully filter out. Our temperature range is stable within 5 degrees year-round. When I first saw the data from Earth, I thought there had been an error. I could not believe that intelligent life could evolve in such conditions. Sarah listened, and slowly understanding began to dawn on her face. You are saying that Earth is unusual? That other planets are not like ours? Earth is not just unusual, Kelrick said. Earth is an extreme outlier. It is a nightmare world, and humans are nightmare creatures, though you do not realize it because you have nothing to compare yourselves to. You think you are weak because you compare yourselves to Earth's other predators, but those predators would also be considered terrifying by galactic standards. A creature you call a house cat would be classified as a dangerous animal on most worlds, and you keep them in your homes as companions. The holographic display shifted to show images of various Earth animals. There were cats, which looked like miniature versions of the massive, fanged predators that prowled Earth's jungles. There were dogs, pack hunters with powerful jaws and predatory instincts, sitting obediently next to human children. There were images of humans handling snakes, creatures that many species in the galaxy would consider demonic. You domesticated wolves, Kelrick said, his voice filled with awe and horror. Apex predators with sophisticated pack hunting strategies. You turn them into companions through selective breeding over thousands of generations. This level of control over other species, this ability to reshape life itself to suit your needs, is unprecedented. Most species focus on adapting to their environment. Humans adapt their environment to themselves. Sarah was beginning to look overwhelmed. I had no idea. We just thought we were alone in the universe. We have been looking for other life for so long, and now you are telling me that we are the scary ones? Extremely scary, confirmed a small voice from the audience. It was one of the few delegates brave enough to speak. Forgive me, but you must understand our perspective. We come from worlds where the greatest danger is perhaps a mild weather fluctuation or a plant that causes a rash. The idea of living on a planet where the very air is corrosive, where massive predators roam freely, where the weather can kill you in moments, it is beyond our comprehension. And yet you live there happily. You raise your young there. You consider it home. Sarah thought about this. She thought about her apartment in the city, with its windows looking out over the park. She thought about taking her nephew to the zoo last month, where they had watched the tigers and bears from behind safety glass. She thought about the thunderstorm that had rolled through last week, with lightning that lit up the sky and thunder that shook the windows. None of it had seemed particularly dangerous to her. It was just life. It was just Earth. I suppose when you put it that way, she said slowly, I can see why you might be concerned. But humans are not dangerous. We are friendly. We want to meet other species and learn from them. We want to join the galactic community. A nervous laugh rippled to the audience. The idea of humans joining the galactic community was both exciting and terrifying. What would it mean to have a species of Deathworlders as neighbors? What would it mean to interact with beings who considered Earth's hellish conditions to be normal? Kelrick raised his appendages again. That is precisely why we are here today. We are not giving Earth this award to mock you or frighten you away. We are giving it to you because we recognize that despite your terrifying nature, humans have shown themselves to be curious, creative, and compassionate. You have art and literature. You have philosophy and science. You have made it clear through your early space transmissions that you value peace and cooperation. These are qualities we admire and respect. He turned to face Sarah directly. But we also need to be honest with you about how the galaxy perceives humanity. You are going to encounter fear when you meet other species. You are going to be met with caution and sometimes panic. This is not because anyone wants to exclude you. It is simply because you represent something that most of us cannot fully comprehend. You are living proof that life can exist and flourish under conditions that we consider impossible. Sarah nodded slowly, processing this information. Her human brain, evolved to solve complex problems under pressure, was already working through the implications. So what do we do? How do we make other species comfortable around us? It was such a human question, Kelrick thought. Even faced with the revelation that they were galactic terrors, humans immediately looked for a solution, for a way to fix the problem. They did not accept the situation as it was. They sought to change it. This was the human way. This was what made them both wonderful and terrifying. That is something we will need to figure out together, Kelrick said. But first, I believe we should complete the award ceremony. Sarah Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Survey Committee and the assembled civilizations of the galaxy, I present to you this recognition. Earth has been officially designated as the most terrifying planet in the galaxy, and humanity has been recognized as the most formidable species we have ever encountered. This is given with respect, with awe, and with hope that we can build a future together despite our differences. A holographic trophy materialized in front of Sarah. It showed Earth surrounded by symbols representing danger, resilience, and strength. Sarah reached out and touched it, and the trophy solidified in her hands through a clever use of hard light technology. She held it carefully, looking down at it with a mix of pride and confusion. She had come here expecting to receive humanity's first diplomatic recognition from an alien civilization. She had not expected to learn that Earth was considered a horror show and humans were the monsters that lived there. The delegates in the Grand Hall watched Sarah hold the trophy, and slowly, very slowly, some of them began to relax. She had not attacked anyone. She had not displayed aggression or hostility. She had listened and learned and asked thoughtful questions. Maybe, just maybe, humans were terrifying, but they were not threats. Maybe this could work. But then Sarah did something that made every delegate freeze in place. She looked out at the audience, and her face split into a wide, genuine smile. It was meant to be friendly and welcoming, a gesture of goodwill from one species to many others. But all the watching aliens saw was a predator displaying its teeth. All they saw was a creature from a death world showing them the weapons evolution had given it. The moment stretched out, thick with tension, and Sarah had no idea why everyone suddenly looked so afraid again. Kelrick, standing next to her, understood. He understood that this was going to be a long and difficult process. Humans had no idea how they appeared to others. They had no frame of reference for understanding their own terrifying nature. They were going to have to learn, step by step, how to interact with species that found them frightening. And the galaxy was going to have to learn how to look past the fear and see the potential for friendship and cooperation that humans represented. Perhaps we should take a short break, Kelrick suggested carefully. Give everyone time to process what they have learned today. Sarah nodded, still holding her trophy. She looked around at the sea of nervous faces and felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride that Earth had been recognized, even if the recognition was for being terrifying. Concern that she had somehow made the situation worse. Determination to figure out how to bridge this gap between humans and the rest of the galaxy. And underneath it all, a very human stubbornness that whispered she could make this work if she just tried hard enough. The delegates began to file out of the grand hall, many of them casting nervous glances back at Sarah as they left. Some were whispering to each other, their translator devices creating a soft buzz of multilingual conversation. Some were already sending messages to their home governments, reporting on what they had witnessed, and some, a brave few, were actually approaching Sarah with cautious curiosity, wanting to get a closer look at this creature from the Nightmare Planet. Sarah stood on the stage, holding her trophy, and made a decision. If the galaxy thought humans were terrifying, then she would have to show them that humans could also be kind. She would have to prove that being from a death world did not mean being a monster. She would have to be the bridge between Earth and the stars. It was a heavy responsibility, but Sarah was human, and humans were used to carrying heavy things. It was what they did. It was how they had survived on Earth for so long. Kelric watched Sarah's expression change as she made her internal decision, and he felt a flutter of hope in his three hearts. Maybe this would work after all. Maybe humanity's terrifying nature was exactly what the galaxy needed. Because if there was one thing the universe respected, it was strength. And humans, whether they knew it or not, were incredibly strong. The ceremony had gone better than he had feared. No one had been hurt. No one had died of fright, though a few had come close. And the human representative had handled the revelation with grace and determination. Perhaps there was hope for peaceful coexistence between the Deathworlders and everyone else. Perhaps Earth's terror could be tempered with Earth's compassion. Time would tell, but Kelric was cautiously optimistic as he watched Sarah Chen take her first steps into a larger universe that both feared and needed what humanity had to offer. The next morning, galactic news networks were ablaze with stories about the award ceremony. Footage of Sarah Chen standing on the stage, smiling with her predator teeth, played on repeat across thousands of worlds. Analysts debated what humanity's emergence on the galactic stage would mean. Some predicted chaos and violence. Others predicted a new era of strength and resilience. Still others simply predicted that most species would avoid Earth and its terrifying inhabitants whenever possible. Public opinion was divided, but everyone agreed on one thing. The galaxy had changed yesterday. It had changed the moment humanity was officially recognized as the most formidable species in known space. Sarah herself had spent the night in quarters provided by the Galactic Council. The room was comfortable by most standards, though the gravity had been adjusted to Earth normal at her request, which meant that most of the station's staff refused to enter. The bed was too firm, the lighting was too bright, and the temperature was too warm, but these were all considered comfortable conditions for humans. Sarah had laid awake for hours, thinking about everything she had learned. She thought about her students back home, innocent kids who played soccer at recess and worried about math tests. She thought about her neighbors who walked their dogs every evening and waved hello. She thought about humanity's long struggle to survive and thrive on a planet that was apparently a nightmare compared to the rest of the galaxy. It was strange to think of herself as terrifying. Sarah had always considered herself to be pretty ordinary. She was average height, average build, average in most ways that mattered. She had never won any athletic competitions. She had never been in a fight. She had never done anything that she would consider particularly brave or impressive. She was just a teacher who liked science fiction movies and took her nephew to the park on weekends. But apparently, to the rest of the galaxy, the simple act of existing as a human from Earth made her a creature of legend and fear. As she lay in bed, Sarah heard sounds from the corridor outside. They were faint, barely audible, but her human ears picked them up easily. Humans had evolved to hear potential threats, after all. It sounded like station personnel were arguing about something. She caught fragments of conversation through the door. Words like dangerous and unpredictable and should never have invited them drifted through. Sarah sighed. This was going to be harder than she thought. Morning came, or at least what passed for morning, on a space station that operated on a standardized cycle. Sarah showered in water that most species would consider scalding hot, but which she found pleasantly warm. She dressed in the formal outfit that had been designed for her appearance, a compromise between human fashion and something that would not terrify the assembled delegates too much. She looked at herself in the mirror and tried to see what the aliens saw. All she saw was herself. Just Sarah. Just a woman from Earth who was doing her best in a very strange situation. There was a knock at her door, tentative and nervous. Sarah opened it to find Ambassador Kelrick standing there, looking as tired as Sarah felt. His skin had taken on a slightly paler shade, which Sarah had learned indicated stress in his species. "Good morning," he said through his translator. "I hope you rested well." "As well as could be expected," Sarah replied. "I heard some commotion in the hallway last night. Is everything okay?" Kelrick hesitated. "There has been some concern among the station staff about your presence. Nothing serious, but some individuals are uncomfortable. I want you to know that this is not personal. They simply need time to adjust." Sarah nodded. "I understand. This must be strange for everyone. It's strange for me too. I keep expecting to wake up and find out this was all a dream." They walked together through the corridors of the station, and Sarah noticed how other beings reacted to her presence. Most stepped aside quickly, pressing themselves against the walls to give her a wide berth. Some fled entirely, disappearing into side corridors or ducking into rooms. A few, the braver ones, simply stopped and stared with whatever sensory organs they possessed. Sarah tried to make herself seem as non-threatening as possible. She kept her hands visible and relaxed. She made her movements slow and predictable. She smiled only with her mouth closed, having learned that showing her teeth caused panic. But even with all these precautions, she could feel the fear radiating from the other inhabitants of the station. "Tell me about your world," Kelrick said as they walked. "What is it like to live on Earth? Not the scientific data, but the actual experience. What does a typical day look like for you?" Sarah thought about it. "Well, I wake up when my alarm goes off, usually around 6 in the morning. I make coffee, which is a beverage we make from roasted plant seeds. It contains a stimulant called caffeine that helps us wake up." "You consume stimulants daily?" Kelrick asked, sounding alarmed. "Well, yes, lots of humans do. It's very common. Is that unusual?" Most species would only consume stimulants in emergency situations. Daily use would be considered a dangerous addiction. Sarah filed that information away. "Okay, after coffee, I get ready for work and head to the school where I teach. I usually walk because it's only about 2 kilometers away." "You walk 2 kilometers every day? For no reason other than transportation?" "Sure, it's good exercise. Plus the weather has been nice lately. Well, except for that thunderstorm last week." Kelrick made a sound that his translator did not bother to interpret. Sarah was learning that some reactions were universal enough that they needed no translation. Astonishment was apparently one of them. "So I teach classes all day," Sarah continued. "Math and science mostly. I have about 30 students in each class, kids between 12 and 14 years old. They're good kids, though they can be rowdy sometimes. After school, I grade papers or plan lessons. Maybe go for a run if I have energy." "Run? You run for recreation?" "Yeah, it helps me stay healthy. I usually do about 5 kilometers a few times a week." Kelrick stopped walking. His 3 hearts were beating rapidly, and Sarah worried that she had said something wrong. "Sarah," he said carefully, "you are telling me that you voluntarily engage in sustained cardiovascular exercise over significant distances on a planet with almost 1 standard gravity, for fun. When you put it that way, it sounds extreme, but lots of people run. Some even do marathons, which are 42 kilometers. 42 kilometers, Kelrick repeated faintly. Under Earth's gravity, voluntarily. Well, yes, people train for months to do it, but it's a popular activity. Thousands of people participate in major marathons. They had reached a conference room where Sarah was scheduled to meet with several diplomatic representatives who wanted to learn more about humanity. The room was larger than necessary, Sarah noticed, probably to give everyone space to keep their distance from her. Inside, about a dozen beings from various species waited nervously. They all tensed visibly when Sarah entered, but to their credit, none of them fled. The meeting was awkward at first. Everyone was polite but cautious. They asked Sarah basic questions about Earth and humanity, and each answer seemed to make them more nervous. She told them about Earth's diverse climates and ecosystems. She explained human dietary habits, which apparently were horrifying because humans were omnivores who could eat both plant and animal matter. She described human entertainment, including sports where humans deliberately collided with each other at high speeds for fun. "Let me understand this correctly," said a delegate from the Aquatic Alliance. "You have a sport where humans on ice skates, which are blades attached to footwear, chase a small disc and hit each other violently? And this is considered family entertainment?" "Hockey is very popular in some regions," Sarah confirmed, "though I personally prefer baseball." "Baseball? It's a sport where someone throws a hard ball at very high speeds, and someone else tries to hit it with a wooden bat. The ball can travel over 150 kilometers per hour." The delegates exchanged glances. One of them spoke quietly to Kelrick. "Ambassador, these creatures throw objects at each other at speeds that would be lethal to most species, and they do this for enjoyment." Kelrick nodded grimly. "I told you they were terrifying." Sarah was beginning to feel frustrated. "We're not trying to be scary. We're just living our lives. Everything you're describing as extreme is just normal for us. We don't have another frame of reference." A small, insect-like delegate spoke up. Her voice was soft but clear. "That is precisely the problem, human Sarah. You are normal in an abnormal way. You are adapted to conditions that should not produce intelligent life, yet you not only survived, but flourished. You are an impossibility made real. This is what frightens us." Sarah thought about that. She thought about humanity's long history, about the struggles and triumphs that had brought them to this point. She thought about ancient humans surviving ice ages and droughts and predators. She thought about civilizations rising and falling, about wars and peace, about art and science, and all the things that made humanity who they were. And she realized that maybe being terrifying was not the worst thing in the world. Maybe it just meant that humans were survivors. Maybe it meant they had earned their place in the galaxy through sheer, stubborn determination. "I can't change where I come from," Sarah said finally. "I can't make Earth less dangerous or make humans less adapted to extreme conditions. But I can promise you that humanity wants to be friends, not enemies. We want to learn from you and share with you. We have so much to offer, and we have so much to learn. Yes, we're different. Yes, we're scary to you. But we're also curious and creative and capable of great kindness. Give us a chance to prove it." The room was silent for a long moment. Then the insect-like delegate spoke again. "That is a very human thing to say. Facing an impossible situation and demanding a chance to overcome it. I believe I am beginning to understand your species." "Is that a good thing?" Sarah asked. "I am not certain yet, but it is at least interesting. And perhaps interesting is enough for now." The meeting continued for several more hours. Slowly, gradually, the other delegates began to relax. They asked more questions and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. They shared information about their own worlds, and Sarah was fascinated to learn just how different those worlds were from Earth. She heard about planets with minimal weather patterns, where the temperature never varied by more than a few degrees. She learned about worlds with minimal gravity, where beings floated more than walked. She discovered that many species could not process solid food, and instead absorb nutrients through their skin or through specialized organs. The diversity of the galaxy was amazing, and it made Sarah realize just how unique Earth really was. By the time the meeting ended, Sarah felt cautiously optimistic. She had not made any close friends, but she had at least made the other delegates see her as a person rather than just a terrifying monster. It was a start. It was progress. And humans were good at building on progress, one small step at a time. That evening, Kelrick invited Sarah to dinner in one of the station's many dining facilities. The restaurant had been cleared of other patrons for Sarah's visit, another reminder of how her presence disrupted normal station life. But the staff, while nervous, at least served her without fleeing in terror. Sarah ordered something that was supposed to be similar to Earth food, though it ended up being a strange paste that tasted like vanilla and cardboard, had a disappointing baby. She ate it anyway, not wanting to seem ungrateful. "Tell me honestly," Sarah said to Kelrick, "do you think this can work? Do you think humanity can join the galactic community despite being so different?" Kelrick was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. "I think it will be difficult. I think there will be challenges and misunderstandings. I think some species will never be comfortable around humans, and that is their right. But I also think that the galaxy needs what humanity brings. We have grown comfortable in our easy worlds. We have forgotten that life can be a struggle, that survival requires strength and adaptation. Humans remember these things because you live them every day. You can teach us to be stronger, to be more resilient, and perhaps we can teach you to be gentler, to appreciate peace and stability. Together we might create something better than what either of us could achieve alone." Sarah smiled, a small, closed-mouthed smile that would not frighten anyone. "I like that vision. It's hopeful." "Hope is important," Kelrick agreed. "Hope is what brought you here despite the risks. Hope is what keeps me believing that we can bridge the gap between your species and mine. Hope is very human quality, I think." "Maybe, but I bet hope is universal. Every species must have it, or they would never have survived long enough to reach the stars." They talked late into the night, sharing stories about their respective worlds. Kelrick told Sarah about his home planet, where the biggest danger was perhaps tripping over a rock during a walk. Sarah told Kelrick about camping trips in the mountains, about seeing bears and elk, and sleeping under stars so bright they took your breath away. She told him about swimming in the ocean and feeling the power of the waves. She told him about thunderstorms that lit up the sky and made the ground tremble. And as she talked, she saw understanding grow in Kelrick's expression. He was beginning to truly grasp what it meant to be from Earth, what it meant to live on a planet that was constantly testing you, pushing you, making you stronger, whether you wanted to be or not. By the time Sarah returned to her quarters that night, she was exhausted but satisfied. She had made progress. She had helped at least one alien understand that humans were more than just terrifying deathworlders. They were people with hopes and dreams and fears of their own. Tomorrow she would meet with more delegates. She would continue to answer questions and dispel misconceptions. She would be the bridge between Earth and the stars, one conversation at a time. It was not going to be easy, but Sarah had never expected easy. She was human after all, and humans were used to doing hard things. The next few days followed a similar pattern. Sarah met with various groups of delegates, always accompanied by Kelrick or another member of the Galactic Council staff. Each meeting started with fear and ended with cautious understanding. Word began to spread throughout the station that the human was not actually dangerous, that she was friendly and intelligent and willing to answer questions. Slowly, very slowly, beings stopped fleeing when they saw Sarah in the corridors. Some even nodded politely as they passed, though they still kept their distance. Sarah learned that the galaxy was vast, almost beyond comprehension. There were thousands of intelligent species, millions of inhabited worlds, and countless civilizations at various stages of development. Earth was a newcomer, barely noticed until the survey team had filed their alarming report. Most species never left their home systems, content to live peacefully in the environments they had evolved for. The idea of a species that could adapt to multiple environments, that could survive and thrive in conditions that would kill others, was rare. Humans were not unique in being Deathworlders, but they were unusual, and their particular combination of intelligence, adaptability, and determination made them stand out even among other tough species. During one meeting, a delegate asked Sarah what humanity's goals were for the future. It was a good question, and Sarah had to think carefully about her answer. "We want to explore," she said finally. "We want to learn. We have been alone on Earth for so long, wondering if there was anyone else out there. Now we know there is, and we want to meet you all. We want to understand the universe. We want to find our place in it." "And if others do not want you there?" the delegate asked. "If they are too frightened to accept you?" "Then we will wait," Sarah replied. "We will be patient. We will prove ourselves through our actions over time. Humans can be very patient when they need to be. We have spent centuries working toward things that we knew we would never personally see completed. We built cathedrals that took generations to finish. We launched probes into space that would not reach their destinations for decades. We can wait as long as it takes to earn the galaxy's trust." The delegate seemed satisfied with that answer. Later, Kelrick told Sarah that her response had been widely shared and discussed. Many species were reassured by the idea that humans understood they would need to earn their place rather than demand it. It was another small step toward acceptance, another brick in the bridge Sarah was trying to build. On the 5th day of her stay at the station, something unexpected happened. Sarah was walking through one of the public areas when she heard a commotion. She followed the sound to a viewing platform where a small crowd had gathered. In the center of the crowd was a child, or at least what appeared to be a child based on its size and behavior. The being was from a species Sarah had not encountered before, with crystalline skin that refracted light in beautiful patterns. The child was crying, producing a high-pitched sound that was actually quite pleasant to human ears, but apparently indicated distress. An adult of the same species was trying to comfort the child, but whatever had upset them was not easily resolved. Sarah approached carefully, not wanting to frighten anyone. "Is everything okay? Can I help?" The crowd turned to look at her, and several beings backed away quickly, but the parent of the distressed child looked desperate enough to overlook their fear. "My child dropped their comfort object over the railing. It fell to the lower level. I cannot retrieve it because the gravity in that section is too high for my species. It would crush me." Sarah looked over the railing. The lower level was about 10 meters down, and she could see a small crystalline object lying on the floor. The area was marked with warning signs indicating elevated gravity. Sarah checked the specifications displayed on a nearby panel. 1.3 standard gravities. That was higher than Earth's gravity, but not by much. Uncomfortable for most species, potentially lethal for some, but manageable for a human. She made a decision. "I'll get it," Sarah said. "No!" the parent exclaimed. "It is too dangerous. You will be hurt." Sarah smiled gently. "I'll be fine. Trust me." She found an access ladder and climbed down to the lower level. The increased gravity hit her as soon as she stepped off the ladder, and she felt the extra weight pressing down on her. It was noticeable, like wearing a heavy backpack, but it was not unbearable. Sarah walked across the floor, picked up the crystalline object, and climbed back up the ladder. The whole thing took less than 2 minutes. The crowd was silent, staring at Sarah in awe. She had just done something that most of them would have considered impossible. She had entered a high-gravity zone without protective gear and emerged unharmed. She handed the object to the crying child, who immediately stopped crying and clutched it happily. The parent looked at Sarah with an expression that might have been gratitude or might have been fear. Possibly both. "Thank you," the parent whispered. "You risked yourself for a stranger's child." "It wasn't really a risk," Sarah said. "The gravity was only a bit higher than what I'm used to. I'm just glad I could help." Word of the incident spread rapidly through the station. By the next day, everyone knew the story of how the human had walked into a high-gravity zone to retrieve a child's toy. Some interpreted it as further proof of humanity's terrifying resilience, but others, like the child's parent, interpreted it as proof that humans could be kind and helpful despite their fearsome nature. Sarah became something of a minor celebrity on the station. Beings who had been too frightened to approach her now wanted to meet her, to hear her story, to understand what it meant to be human. Kelrick was pleased with this development. You have done more for human-alien relations in one spontaneous act of kindness than 1,000 diplomatic meetings could have achieved. You have shown them that humans are not monsters. You are people who care about others, even strangers from species you have never encountered before. I just did what anyone would do, Sarah protested. But that is the point, Kelrick said gently. You did what you thought anyone would do. But most species would not have been able to do it, even if they wanted to. You succeeded because you are human, because you come from a planet that made you strong. You used your strength to help someone weaker. That is heroism. That is what we needed to see. The remainder of Sarah's stay on the station was markedly different from the beginning. She was still treated with caution, but now there was also curiosity and even admiration mixed with the fear. She gave several more presentations about Earth and humanity, and the audiences were larger and more engaged. She shared images of Earth's natural wonders, its diverse ecosystems, its beautiful and terrible majesty. She showed them human art and music. She read them poetry that had been written over thousands of years of human history. She wanted them to understand that humans were not just survivors, but creators, that they valued beauty and meaning and connection with others. On her last day at the station, Sarah gave a final speech to the assembled delegates. She had worked on it all night, trying to find the right words to summarize everything she had learned and everything she wanted the galaxy to know about humanity. She stood on the stage in the Grand Hall where she had received the award less than 2 weeks ago, and she looked out at the crowd with confidence she had not felt before. When I came here, Sarah began, I had no idea what to expect. I certainly did not expect to learn that my planet is considered a nightmare world, and my species is considered terrifying. It has been a strange and humbling experience. But it has also taught me something important. It has taught me that perspective matters. From your perspective, humans are frightening because we survive conditions that would kill you. But from our perspective, we are fragile because we barely survive conditions that are normal for us. Neither perspective is wrong. They are just different views of the same reality. She paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. I cannot change what humans are. I cannot make Earth less dangerous or make humans less adapted to extreme conditions. But I can ask you to see us as more than just our worst aspects. Yes, we are strong and resilient. Yes, we come from a planet that would terrify most of you. But we are also kind and curious and creative. We value life, including lives that are very different from our own. We are capable of great compassion and great cooperation. We want to be part of the galactic community, not because we want to dominate it, but because we believe we have something to contribute and something to learn. I know that accepting humanity will not be easy for many of you. I know that some of you will never be comfortable around humans, and I respect that. But I ask that you give us a chance. Judge us by our actions, not by your fears. Let us prove that being from a death world does not make us monsters. Let us show you that humans can be friends and allies, not threats. We are not asking for special treatment or instant acceptance. We are simply asking for the opportunity to earn our place among you over time. Sarah looked around at the faces, both familiar and strange, that watched her from the audience. Earth has been named the most terrifying planet in the galaxy. Humans have been recognized as one of the most formidable species known to exist. I accept these titles not with pride, but with understanding. They are true from your perspective. But I hope that someday, in addition to being known as terrifying, humans will also be known as trustworthy, as helpful, as friends. That is the reputation I want us to earn. That is the future I want us to build together." The silence that followed her speech was profound. Then slowly, one delegate began to applaud. It was the parent whose child Sarah had helped, starting a gesture of appreciation that their species had learned from observing other cultures. Others joined in, creating a strange symphony of sounds as dozens of species expressed approval in their own ways. Some applauded, some released pleasant pheromones, some changed colors, some hummed at specific frequencies, but they were all expressing the same sentiment: respect and cautious hope for humanity's future in the galaxy. Kelric joined Sarah on the stage, and his three hearts swelled with emotion. "You have done well, Sarah Chen of Earth. You have represented your species with honor and dignity. You have helped us see past our fears to the potential for friendship. The galaxy is not ready to fully embrace humanity yet, but you have planted seeds that will grow in time. When other humans venture into space, they will find the path a little easier because of what you accomplished here." Sarah felt tears prickling at her eyes, a very human response to strong emotion. She blinked them away and smiled, remembering to keep her teeth hidden. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for being willing to look past your fears and see us as we truly are. I hope this is just the beginning of a long and positive relationship between humanity and the galactic community." The ceremony concluded with a formal recognition of Sarah as Earth's first official ambassador to the Galactic Council. It was a title that came with responsibilities and challenges, but Sarah accepted it willingly. Someone had to be the bridge between Earth and the stars. Someone had to be the face of humanity to a galaxy that found them terrifying. It might as well be her. She had come this far. She might as well see it through. As Sarah prepared to return to Earth, she reflected on everything that had happened. She thought about how strange it was that the qualities humans considered normal were seen as exceptional by others. She thought about the responsibility that came with being a representative of her entire species. She thought about all the humans back on Earth who were going to learn that they lived on a nightmare planet and were considered monsters by galactic standards. It was going to be quite a shock for humanity as a whole. But Sarah had faith that humans would adapt, just as they had always adapted to every challenge they had ever faced. It was what they did best. The ship that would take her home was smaller than the station, but still impressive by human standards. The pilot was a member of a species that resembled something between a squid and a bird, and they were clearly nervous about having a human passenger. But they were professional and courteous, and Sarah appreciated their bravery in taking on this assignment. As the ship pulled away from the station and began its journey toward Earth, Sarah looked back at the Galactic Council headquarters and felt a sense of accomplishment. She had done something important here. She had helped open a door between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. It was just a crack, barely open, but it was enough. Given time, that door would open wider. Humans would venture out into the galaxy, and the galaxy would slowly grow accustomed to their presence. There would be misunderstandings and setbacks. There would be moments of fear and tension. But there would also be moments of connection and cooperation. There would be friendships formed across species lines. There would be cultural exchanges and shared knowledge. There would be a future where being human meant being part of something larger than Earth, larger than any one species or world. Sarah was going to be part of building that future, and when she got home, she was going to find others who shared her vision and her determination. Together, they would help humanity take its place among the stars, one small step at a time, one friend at a time, one bridge at a time. Because that was what humans did. They faced the impossible and made it possible. They looked at challenges that would make others surrender, and they said, "We can do this." They adapted and overcame and persisted until they succeeded. Earth had made them that way. Earth had forged them in conditions that the galaxy considered deadly. And now, equipped with that strength, that resilience, that stubborn refusal to give up, humans were ready to show the galaxy what they could really do. Not as conquerors or threats, but as friends and partners and fellow travelers on the long journey through the cosmos. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, and the stars stretched into lines of light. Sarah watched through the viewport and smiled. Somewhere out there, among all those stars, were billions of beings who were afraid of humans. But also among those stars were billions of beings who might one day call humans their friends. It was up to Sarah and those who came after her to make sure the second group grew larger than the first. It was a heavy responsibility, but Sarah was ready for it. After all, she was from Earth, the most terrifying planet in the galaxy. She had been tested by her homeworld every day of her life and had emerged strong. This was just one more test, one more challenge to overcome. And like every challenge before it, she would face it with determination and hope, and the quiet confidence that came from being human. The journey home would take several weeks. Sarah had time to plan, time to think about how to share what she had learned with the people of Earth. She imagined the reactions when people found out they were considered galactic terrors. Some would be frightened, some would be amused, some would take it as a point of pride. But most, she hoped, would understand the responsibility that came with such a reputation. Being strong meant having a duty to protect those who were weaker. Being resilient meant helping others become more resilient too. Being from a death world meant appreciating the gift of life wherever it occurred. These were the lessons Sarah wanted humanity to learn as they moved forward into their cosmic future. Not that they were better than other species, but that they were different in ways that brought both opportunities and obligations. The galaxy feared humanity's strength, but Sarah believed that fear could be transformed into respect and eventually into trust. It would take time and patience and countless small acts of kindness, but it could be done. Humans had accomplished impossible things before. They had survived ice ages and created civilizations. They had cured diseases and explored their own world from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains. They had split the atom and walked on their moon. Earning the trust of a frightened galaxy was just the next impossible thing on the list. As Earth grew larger in the viewport, a blue-green jewel hanging in the darkness of space, Sarah felt a surge of love for her terrible, beautiful, nightmare planet. Earth had made humanity what they were. Earth had given them the strength they needed to survive among the stars. And now Earth's children were going home to share the news that they were no longer alone in the universe. That news would change everything. It would redefine humanity's place in existence. It would open doors to knowledge and experiences that previous generations could only dream about. But it would also come with challenges and responsibilities that humanity had never faced before. Sarah was ready. Her species was ready, even if they did not know it yet. They were ready because Earth had prepared them, had tested them, had made them strong enough to handle whatever came next. The most terrifying planet in the galaxy had raised the most terrifying species in the galaxy. But that terror was tempered with compassion, with curiosity, with a desire to connect and understand. That combination, Sarah believed, was exactly what the galaxy needed. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere, and Sarah pressed her face to the viewport, watching her homeworld rush up to meet her. Somewhere down there were her students, her family, her friends. Somewhere down there was the middle school where she taught, the apartment where she lived, the park where she walked. Somewhere down there was humanity, blissfully unaware that they were about to learn they lived on a death world and were considered nightmare creatures by the rest of the galaxy. Sarah smiled. It was going to be an interesting conversation.